Welcome back to Burnout Break Room, the podcast that's like a break room, but helpful, where we look at burnout through a realistic lens, talk about ways to take a break from the grind, and spill the tea.
I'm Caitlin Truhella, creativity coach and speaker.
And I'm Lyndie Larimore, licensed therapist, certified career coach, and consultant. We're your hosts, and thank you for joining us here in the Burnout Break Room. This episode is brought to you by Loop Earplugs. As the winner of the Red Dot Award for product design, Loop is globally recognized for its innovation in earwear, promising long-lasting ear protection. Whether they're for focus, fun, or better sleep, you'll find durable quality and premium comfort in every pair. Use your link to get 15% off your next purchase today and live life at your volume. Lean into everything you love that's loud with a bold, noise-reducing earwear. Thank you, Loop. Hi, Caitlin.
Hey, Lindy, how you doing?
I am good. I'm not going to complain this episode, I think.
This is a space that is open to complaining, but not today. We've got
Yes.
good news.
Yes, right. I do have good news. But also, I just realized I'm going to call myself out for a therapist moment that I just had. This is the space I'm in a very, very, very weird emotional space. But anytime anyone asks me, how are you doing? As therapists, we're so trained to like almost be afraid of that question.
Mm,
We're always like, I don't know how to answer. So my answer is always like, I can't complain. It would be weird if I did in your therapy session,
mm.
which has served me for years. No one's called me out on saying that every time they ask me that question. Someone will figure it out. So I realize I just said the same thing to you. I can't complain, or I won't. Yeah, but life is good. I'm experiencing some professional wins, some music wins, which is really exciting. I get to sing a piece in an upcoming concert that I'm really pumped to perform, which I love. I love that piece of music. So I'm chilling. I'm chilling over here. Caitlin, how are you?
Heck yeah. Talk about riding that positive wave. Yeah, I'm gonna call myself out. Usually when I experience accomplishments, regardless of what degree, it's very much that process of, okay, yay, now what's next?
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah, I'm happy to share some good news as well. I've started working my first consultancy gig. I'm so excited, not just because of, branching into this kind of work, but I get to work with a nonprofit that supports a need that is extremely close to my heart and is very much similar to my experience with the prison education project that I've done in the past. So, I am absolutely loving this work and it is so incredibly fulfilling. So, yeah, so super happy to share that good news too. So,
That's so so excited for you, Caitlin. Well deserved. They are so fortunate to have you. And isn't it great when you're doing work that for something that just feels so fulfilling. And this is what healing from burnout looks like, I think, is like deciding to do the scary thing of saying, no, I want to do what energizes me and fulfills me, even if that means taking risks and sacrificing in other ways. So
can I get a
thank you.
hell yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for modeling that, Caitlin, right? Like that's so exciting. And I will say, similar to my experience, like the reason I get to do this thing is because I did the scary thing of putting myself out there, which I hadn't done in years. And it was
Mm,
terrifying. I will say it was terrifying. So I think, yeah, let's celebrate, doing the scary thing because it's important to us and then experiencing maybe some fulfillment and energy.
absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing that too, because I mean, it's one thing to be able to celebrate ourselves. Of course, that's incredibly important, but to that same point of working in your purpose in those spaces, in those communities, but also how we can celebrate each other in these communities, because that's how we also become more aware of each other's stories and how those form deep connections and help to also prevent isolation. And Speaking of connections through stories, today we are so excited to be joined by Emmy-nominated filmmaker and educator Tricia Creason-Valencia. She brings raw honesty and creative fire to every story she tells. Her work dives into motherhood, mental health, and resilience while spotlighting social justice and the power of women's voices. Ooh,
Woo!
I got chills. As co-founder of PowerHouse in San Jose, California, she helps women plus and youth turn creativity into change. With 20 plus years in film and media, Tricia finds meaning and magic in the chaos of creation. Tricia, welcome to the Burnout Break Room. We are so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. I love hanging out with my friends around the break room.
Yay!
I have to say, just hearing your bio and reading about the work that you've been doing, I'm already just so excited and I want to hear all about it and about you, but I just want to say thanks for doing the work that you're doing and lifting voices. It feels more important than it ever has, and, potentially more, maybe there's a little more risk involved these days. So just thank you for that. But I'd love to hear about you and what brought you to doing this work. And, was there burnout along the way? We always love to hear a good burnout story.
Yes. Yeah, so I've been doing different parts of this work, I'd say, for 20 plus years. I went to film school in my late 20s and I'm now in my mid 50s. So there've been lots of different incarnations of doing this, but like you mentioned, the thread for me has always been social justice and amplifying voices of marginalized people, however you want to sort of define that. For me, that usually means women. It often means youth. Sometimes it's the Spanish speaking community. I'm Latina and I like to tell those stories as well. It's embedded in everything that I do. And for a long time, that was being a documentary filmmaker. And I loved that work a lot. Absolutely burned out at some point in that journey where I was exhausted by the continual race for funding.
Ooh.
The work
Mm.
itself, I can do all day long, right? I love being on set. I love connecting with people and gathering their stories. I love being part of my film crew, my team. I love post-production and editing. I literally love every single aspect of the craft. And I got so tired by the financial strain of constantly writing the next grant, seeking funding, getting a small grant, being able to pay the editor, but not myself. And it truly, I mean, it got to a state of burnout where I was doing some nonprofit work, which sort of, was very mission aligned with who I am and what I do as a filmmaker. And I would be even really frustrated by that work because I was just like angry and resentful all the time that I wasn't getting paid fairly. Now I talk about being paid abundantly. I'm not even talking about fair anymore. I really
Yeah.
want to,
Yeah.
feel my value and get paid accordingly. So I would say, yeah, pretty strong burnout from that specific element of like the financial inequity of trying to be a social justice filmmaker. And that has pushed me to redefine and figure out, how else do I want to do this? And how do I take the parts of this that are juicy and that feed my soul, keep doing it, but not do it in this way where I'm trying to like fundraise to get films on PBS, kind of a certain scripted pipeline for how to do the labor. So I would say that's a definite burnout. And then I think caregiver burnout is the piece that Caitlan and I connected around when we talked recently, which is more of my mothering journey, my family story. And we can talk more about that, but I have a mother with dementia who's in hospice care. And during the pandemic, I was raising two teenagers, and it was incredibly difficult and just sort of like this grueling marathon of emotional labor and caregiving for all these different parts of my sandwich identity. And I've
Mm.
absolutely experienced significant burnout at lots of points on that mothering and caregiving journey.
Mm. Tricia, there's so many parts of this that I think resonate with so many people, especially, I mean, even just like with personally my experience in filmmaking. It's astonishing how much energy it takes, not just to, have the fundraising piece in filmmaking, but trying to
Yeah.
fundraise for film as a woman.
Hmm.
at so many points it just feels completely insurmountable. And I love the distinction that you make as well in terms of it's not even about being paid fairly, like being paid abundantly,
Right.
because again, like, and we've talked about this on, other episodes as well. We so often get sold this lie as creatives that, creative work is not nearly as valuable as other kinds of work. And that's
Right.
just not true.
Right.
And especially when you include this, social justice work on top of that as a part of
Hmm.
the creative process, as a part of the message that goes along with the creative process, it's compounded in so many ways. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate you calling attention to that because it really is exhausting. But the fact that you have continued to pursue this, especially considering that it is so aligned with your purposeful work, it's that means a lot, and I think that message in itself means a lot to people.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I feel like I've I'm trying really hard to do work on myself to let go of the starving artist concept, which for me
Mm,
is it's really embedded in my ethics. Like I believe that if I'm serving the community, I should not focus on money or financial stability or being paid. It's about my acts of service and working for justice. And I think that that has led me to be totally exhausted, right? Because you can't do that if you don't have the comfort of like, oh, I can make my mortgage this month or I can whatever, anything that's, related to sort of balance and rest becomes non-essential, right? When you're just like striving and striving and striving for this sort of ideal. So I've been trying to figure out like how do I hold those ideals? How do I stay true to my mission and also make enough money to live? And more than that, make enough money that I can amplify and help other people do their thing, right? Like I've realized now, if I had a little more money, if I could release that angst and that exhaustion, oh my gosh, how much more power I would have in the world,
Mm,
right?
mm,
hmm
mm. Trisha, so much of this is resonating. I want to highlight what you've said about this messaging that's out there for folks doing social justice work, for women, for mothers, for caretakers, for folks doing nonprofit work, the helpers, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Um, that if you're not burned out, you're doing it wrong.
Right. Right.
hmm
We've talked about this a lot on the podcast, actually, and one of our guests actually brought up the concept of the compassion tax,
Mm,
where there's this misunderstanding that, well, if you're doing it to help, then any free labor is for the love of it. And this is also in the arts world too, right? We hear this all the time, like, oh, you can do it for exposure, or what do you mean I
right.
have to pay for this?
Right.
And this was even before AI became a thing, right? I heard something this morning that I will share out, and I'm still processing it, talking to a friend of mine who's a social worker, being told, oh, you can't be traumatized, burned out, whatever it might be, because you are a social worker. Oh, that doesn't count.
Mm.
Because of the work that you do,
Wow.
it doesn't
Because you
count.
chose the work? Is that
Yeah, I don't
what the
know.
argument would be?
I'm very curious myself. So I think that there is this kind of assumption out there that if you are a helper, you don't get to talk about your stress or your burnout or
Yeah.
your compassion fatigue.
Yeah.
And so, Tricia, I'm curious to know, we've talked a lot about burnout stories, and I also love hearing what it was like for you to go from maybe embodying that idea that I'm supposed to be burned out or that I'm supposed to come from a place of scarcity if I'm doing this work to more of this like, oh no, I not only do I want to make more than enough money. I want to make enough money to be able to give back. So I'm curious to hear what that journey was like for you.
Yeah. Well, I'm still on it. It ain't over. I have a couple things working in my favor personality wise. There's sort of pre-pandemic Tricia and post-pandemic Tricia. Same person, but changed in significant ways. Pre-pandemic Tricia would have been defined, I think, very much as an optimist, super duper high energy, can do it all, loves doing it all. I'm an extrovert, so I get my energy from staying active and being around people. All of those things work in my favor for the high sort of intensity, interpersonal storytelling, story gathering, community building work that I do, right? So I feel like I managed it pretty well and really truly enjoyed it, right? Like I got good energy from it and I was able to do a lot in a short period of time, also raising two kids, figuring out all that work-life balance business. But I felt like it was working pretty well for me. When the pandemic came and everything suddenly completely closed in on itself, I was working full time as a lecturer at a university, which I love, love, love. I love doing film. I teach filmmaking and film history through a feminist lens, experimental film, like all stuff that I just absolutely love. And it all stopped and went online. And that for me was a huge energy barrier, right? Like that does not work at all for the kind of like hands-on, up close, engaged kind of professor that I love to be. So that really shifted for me. And then the family dynamics with my two young kids, I had a teen, a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old when the pandemic first began. Their lives, kind of imploded and slowed down significantly. So a lot of the mothering that I was doing in the community, whether that was, volunteering to make props at my son's theater company or touring around with my daughter's roller derby team or running the PTA at the middle school, like so much of my mothering stuff was outward and like in the community. And again, really fun and really life-giving for me. It was all gone, just like boom, right?
Mm.
Hmm.
So I went into a period of what I would categorize as a pretty deep depression. I don't know. You can tell me whether you think the interplay is between burnout and depression.
Yeah,
Semantically, I'm not sure. Like,
sure.
I'd love to hear from you how you think those two things
Yeah.
connect. But I feel like, I mean, I know that for me, it was a pretty extended depressive state for a good long while, and I had to really, well, first I just had to exist and persist. I needed to pass through that phase of my life. I can say that now, being on the other side. And then I had to figure out, like, how do I actively reclaim joy? How do
Mm.
I
Mm.
reconnect with
Mm.
the communities that I do love, that do give me so much life in a way that is really smart and
Mm.
sort of focused? And
Mm.
I can tell you, like, there are specific things I did to reintegrate and to respark and find the things that were going to be able to give me back that balance and energy. And also, by then, mental illness had emerged in my family with my child in a really significant way. So I was like, oh, I need to find a whole new community now as
Mm.
well, a different support community that's going to be able to focus and help me through this new element of my parenting reality. It took a lot of energy, right? Like I didn't do it all at once. I did it sort of step by step and figured out like how do I reconnect? How do I sort of figure out which friendships have lasted, which have fallen by the wayside? When things get really hard, you lose friends, and I did,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I
Yes.
knew who were the loyal ones that were going to show up at my door and, take a look around and wash the dishes for me because I clearly wasn't getting off the couch,
Mm. Mm.
right? Really simple, just sort of like loving, tender gestures from women who had been helping me my whole life raise these kids, and now I was in a state where they could see that I just needed presence.
Yeah.
So, can you return to this question I have about like depression versus burnout?
Sure. Yeah, I'm thinking about it and I'm so tempted to like pull out my DSM, which is right, my diagnostic manual, which is right behind me. And you're exactly right, Tricia. There's an incredible amount of crossover. And I also think you're speaking to a couple things and we've never talked about this on the pod before, so it's an important thing to talk about. So clinical depression is basically, a persistent something that's around for like more than 2 weeks where you kind of what you're describing, like you lose pleasure in the things that are feel important to you. It might affect your sleep, your appetite, definitely your
Mhm.
energy, definitely your motivation, your mood, sex drive. Like these are all things that are affected by depression and more days than not, right? So that's kind of the
Right.
clinical, cold and clinical diagnostic understanding of depression. As someone who's experienced it myself, it's something that I feel deep in my bones. I feel it physically when it
Hmm.
happens to me. And to
Hmm.
me, so describing more from my human point of view and less from my diagnostic point of view, it feels like a heaviness that I just can't get out from under. And so getting up off the couch, it feels like everything's literally too heavy for
Yeah.
me to move. And that is actually a symptom of depression is, called anhedonia, where you feel like you can't move your body. So for those supporting folks with depression, when they say it's tough for me to move, it literally feels that way for
Yeah.
some folks.
Yeah.
I think one thing that we're really taught as diagnosticians to pay attention to is when did this start? So, not always, but oftentimes when true clinical depression, major depressive disorder can be something that a person will experience on and off in their life.
Hmm.
So it's something that can happen fairly regularly. It can be related to seasons. So there can be kind of a biological component.
Sure.
A good diagnostician will start asking the when did this start question.
Right.
And then if it's like, well, it started, when my life started to feel like it wasn't working anymore, when I stopped feeling fulfilled, when I started working so hard for something that didn't matter anymore, when I stopped feeling like I was being effective in the world, when I stopped feeling like what I did mattered, when I couldn't access fulfillment even when I was doing fulfilling work, that is a little more like burnout.
Yeah.
It can look exactly like depression. And
Yeah.
the thing they say to look for with burnout is, if you tell someone to just go on vacation, they go on vacation and they come back feeling just as fried as they were before they left. That we start looking a little bit more at burnout, like on their very core, they
Yes.
can't access restoration. So I don't know if that I'm going on the fly here, Trisha. I don't know if that feels helpful, but does that resonate at all with what you experienced?
It does. It does. And I would say that I am not someone who had ever experienced clinical depression prior to that time in my life, and I have passed through it.
Mm,
So that's feels really, really, really good.
mm,
And it's allowed me to re-engage. And it's funny when you talk about like go on a vacation. I remember because so much of what I was struggling with at that time was my mother's dementia had begun, and that has declined precipitously in the last couple years. But even at that time, I was in such a struggle place as a mother, and I could not count on my mom to give me
mm.
guidance anymore when I
Yeah,
really needed mothering.
yeah,
So that was happening.
yeah.
And I was really out of my depth with the onset of my daughter's mental illness. And she ran away from home and she was homeless for 5 months when she was
Mm,
17.
mm,
So it was a very extreme version of parenting. And I was pretty lost about exactly, how I did not know how to navigate it. And so my partner and I looked for lots of support in many places. Like I mentioned, we joined NAMI and we got into a family to family support group.
wonderful.
Um, we saw a parenting coach, which was really huge because I have another child who I felt like I needed to continue to parent him. And I
Yes.
wanted to make sure that we weren't, sort of forgetting him in the midst of all of this stuff. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were continuing to be present and connected with the other kid, the one that
Yes.
wasn't, causing nearly as much drama in our family system. But I remember at one point, the parenting coach said to my partner and me, like, you should really get away. You should take a short trip, the two of you. And I was like, that is insane. No, thank you. I have no desire, no interest. I will release absolutely nothing. I will be a ball of anxiety and
Yes.
worry. Like, that is a horrible suggestion. I was just like, absolutely not. And then, like, 2 years later, kind of further down the journey, my partner and I went to Seattle for a weekend just for fun. And we were doing it. And I looked at him and I was like, oh, we've arrived at a place where we can do this now. We can be
Mm.
connected and we can have fun. And things aren't great. Things are still really, really hard, but they're better.
Yeah.
And we've come back to this sort of essential place of we can experience joy again a little bit. We can be in a new place and feel adventurous. It was small. It was like a 3 day
Mm,
little quickie trip, but
mm,
it was like there's no way I could have done that 2 years before,
mm,
right?
yeah. And I'm curious to know, Tricia, what did joy feel like? How did you know?
It's a great question. It's such a good question. For me, joy is easily signified by laughter. I
Mm,
love to laugh and I love to storytell and, I just love laughing. I love to dance. And I remember, and I'm sort of like in my little group of friends, I'm known as the one that throws the best dance parties. And,
oh,
I love to dance. And I remember at some point during all that, a friend sort of referenced like dance parties or dancing. And I was just like, no,
mm,
like
Mm.
nothing in me wants to dance
mm,
anymore.
mm,
So there was a physical return for me in reclaiming that joy. That the same coach had wonderful advice, except for the take a vacation advice that didn't work. She told me to go back to playing sports. I'm an
mm,
athlete and I've played sports my
Mm.
whole life. I took up roller derby in my 40s and I played that competitively for several years. I play pickup basketball. I'm on a travel softball team now at 55. And because of the pandemic, all of that had ended. And I realized for me what a strong mind body movement, truly getting out aggression. I play sports where I get to hit things hard, slam
mhm,
around,
mhm.
bump into people, and it's sanctioned. Like it's
Yeah,
definitely a physical outlet for me, and I
yeah,
love it. Not to mention the teamwork, the community, the friendships
yes.
that grow that are so strong for me with women, right?
Mhm,
And she just said to me, like, you have got to get back to sports in the midst of all that stuff. And it was literally like, how?
yeah,
So I found a basketball pickup league that was meeting with masks on and people were starting to play again. And I was like, okay, like
yeah.
that seems like sound advice. Move my body, get my energy moving again, be around people. So that was a piece of advice that worked really, really well. And for me, there's deep and immense joy in being connected through sports and being on a team and having those friendships and then making art of any
Mm,
kind, right? Whether it like I
mm,
don't necessarily mean film on a large scale, but anything, all of which I have since reclaimed, right? Now I'm back to photography. I write poetry, I do collage.
mm,
I run this podcasting studio that I'm sitting in, so I've gotten back into media production in a very significant way, both for work
mm,
and for pleasure, for my own, sort of personal creativity
yes.
practice. But those are the markers of joy for me. Like, am I
Mm,
connected to people again? Am I laughing? Am I moving my body? Am I making art?
mm,
That was it. Those were the things. And then now I'm in a space where like I'm still really sad because things are not completely righted with my family. And my mom is very, very sick. And as I mentioned, in hospice care at this point. So I'm sad,
mm,
but I also have a lot of moments, sparks of joy,
mm,
pockets of joy, right?
mm,
Within this life that I'm living. And I'm like, okay, I'm okay.
mm,
Because I
mm.
can I can feel that joy again. It's present for me.
Yeah.
Mm.
Trisha, so
Trisha.
we're both just like, oh, I want to talk about this. Caitlin, please.
No, no worries at all. Trisha, the part that you speak of specifically that called out to me so vividly is the recognition of, whether it's clinical depression or burnout, and also like recognizing when these things happen as a result of changes in our life,
Mhm.
those external things,
Mhm.
especially big life changes, as you were referencing, but also when we lose those support systems as well.
Yeah.
I mean, just as you were describing, like kind of like stomach dropping feeling of discovering, who your real friends are
Yep.
and who they are not. Or when our parents either won't or can't be there for us anymore. And that, I mean, that causes such a big shift in our lives because it's the combination of the realization of the change and the change itself. And then having to, as resilient as anybody can be, it still takes energy and time to then try and figure out where am I going to get support in this place moving forward. And I'm going to raise my hand for a minute too, especially for the people that find it difficult to ask for help in the first place. That's, I feel like, doubly difficult. So I just
Mhm.
want to really thank you for shining a light on that aspect as well. When these situations feel doubly impactful because, it's like the rug is being pulled out from under you from two different directions at
Yep.
the same time. And just to share a little bit of my personal experience in as we're talking about some of the differences and similarities between clinical depression and burnout as well. Very happy to say that I have also experienced and passed through depression as well. Learned a lot from that experience. And but the way I would describe it is one of the things that I find the most joy from just on, a daily basis for no one but myself is, the kind of singing that you do like in the shower or like when you're washing dishes. And when I was experiencing clinical depression, it felt like the inability to sing, almost like,
Mm,
physically losing your voice
mm,
box.
mhm.
And then in burnout, it was being so caught up in everything that was going on that I completely forgot that I even enjoyed doing that. It was
Right,
not even a
right,
thought. And
right.
so like leading to that kind of disconnection where it's not part of your life anymore. And I want to know specifically, and Lyndie, I'm not sure if you had the same question or something slightly different, but specifically as you were talking about these communities and with everything, all of the different kinds of burnout and social injustice that we and so many people are experiencing right now, how would you say that that kind of social connection is important to also keep a focus on the positive while also at the same time not being somebody that is a proponent of say like toxic positivity, but in a
Right.
way that we can continually support each other by sharing wins and just being a part of these constructive spaces.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't think that my goal is to get together. I know my goal is not to get together with my people and be like super positive. In fact, in the parenting journey, I'm sort of like, okay, people who claim that they are raising normies and they are normies and there's nothing hard going on, they're not my people. And I have very little interest in hanging out with them because that just does not resonate with me. I
Hmm.
want to be around people that are interested in telling the truth.
Mm,
Yes.
mm,
I want
Hmm.
to cultivate relationships where we come
mm,
together and we talk about
mm,
how painful, how difficult, how
mm.
challenging, how hilarious, how absurd all these different parts are. And I see myself reflected back, and I know that the relationships are getting stronger and stronger because we're truly sharing what's going on with us. So it's our stories connect us, right? Which is the idea that you mentioned when you read my bio. That has become sort of my mantra is like if we tell the truth, if we share our stories, we are naturally more connected. There are several places where I've made sure that that happens in my life, right? I mean, I mentioned the NAMI support group where I showed up and it was a bunch of folks who were parenting mentally ill children, and I knew that I could tell the truth there, and I didn't have to be polished and I didn't have to be perfect and I could be raw and I could cry. That's a very specific outlet for that kind of authentic truth telling,
Mm,
right?
mm,
I have it in friendships. Some of the same folks that showed up on my door and did my dishes and cajoled me and got me to come out on a walk. Just 10 minutes. Let's just walk for 10 minutes. An hour later, I'm crying, we're talking, we're walking, really making sure that there's space.
mm,
Lyndie, to your point, when someone says to me, "How are you?" I literally usually say, how much time do you have?
I love that response.
I ain't
Such a
about
good
saying
answer.
fine. That's not gonna happen.
That's such a good answer.
Right?
Hmm.
Because that's what I want at this point. And I don't know if it's where I am in my sort of aging journey or if it's where I am in my mothering, process. I'm not sure, but I don't really have time for bullshit anymore.
Yeah.
And if you
Hmm.
don't actually want to know how things are, which is going to include a lot of sadness and pain and grief, it's also going to include a lot of laughing and a lot of joy and a
Yes.
lot of seeing ourselves reflected back, right?
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. So again, thank you for putting this out there. So as a child therapist, right? There's a job that exists out there called at least I'm in Massachusetts, the family partner position. Have you heard of this out where you
Mm-mm,
are, Tricia?
mm-mm,
So it's quite literally a position of parents like you who've experienced stories like you've experienced what you have with children with profound mental health journeys
mm-hmm.
who come alongside and quite literally use their story and their experience to help other parents navigating
Right.
these things, right? Um, we're fortunate to live in a state that, knock on wood, continues to have funding for these kinds of things. Hopefully
Yeah.
that stays. And one of the things that I constantly heard from our family partners was just reminding parents that they're allowed to do anything at all for themselves, anything at all. Like,
Yeah.
even if it's take a moment to breathe, like that can feel radical. And when you're in the middle of it. And what struck me when you were talking about your reclamation of joy was that it required you to set aside time for yourself. And I'm curious to know
Mhm.
what that felt like at first.
Almost impossible,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? I mean, I do think there is this, one of you mentioned this almost like martyrdom complex when it comes to parenting, when it comes to mothering, where it's like here's something I will also say. There's an additional element to my mothering journey, which is I'm an adoptive mom. I
Oh,
adopted both my kids. So I have this extra trip in my head where I'm
yes,
like, you wanted this. You
yes.
worked really hard for this. You've
Mhm.
made a covenant with your children. You do not get to give up ever at any point.
Yeah,
It's a little hardcore. I mean, I do believe
yeah.
this. This is true for me in my
Mm,
agreement that I've made with the universe and with my children, right? It's like I chose this and I'm here to be the very best mom I could possibly be to the children the universe has delivered to me. Not
mhm.
necessarily the kids I thought I might raise,
Yeah.
not the kids I may have had biologically. These are the babies that have come to me, right? So it's
Mm,
now my job to adapt, adjust, and figure out how to be the best mom for them. So
mm,
I'm kind of hardcore and
mhm.
judgmental of myself,
Yes. Yeah.
I'll admit,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
which for good or for bad, I think there's times when that's not good for me and I need to celebrate the wins, take it easy, recognize, that I am doing a pretty good job and that that's enough for today. So I just wanted to introduce that element into this story because I'm pretty extreme about the way that I think about this for
Yeah.
myself. I have very high standards. I'll say that. So that means that it's really, really, really easy for me to prioritize my kids before myself. And
Hmm.
I've done that for a very long time. And high needs children, right? I've had to do a lot of disability advocacy stuff. I've had to do
Yeah.
all sorts of extra parenting tasks because of our family structure and what our
Mm,
kids needed. So it can be difficult. And when I was transitioning back from this really hard period in my life during the pandemic, it was challenging. But the minute I took the step, like of showing up at that basketball with my mask on, I was like, this is correct.
mm,
Oh,
mm,
yes, I need this. This is, the humor, the laughter, the freedom, the looseness in my body, like that all came rushing back to me, and that's extremely validating. It's like, oh,
mm,
right, I need to do this.
mm.
Caitlin, to your point, I'm good at asking for help.
Fabulous. Mm-hmm.
I am. It goes with this radical truth telling thing. It's like, y'all know my mess. I have
Mm-hmm.
not been hiding anything from you. I need help. And my friends show up. People
Wow.
generally want to show up. You just, if
Yeah.
it, I find that if I ask, then they do, right? And I also take a lot of pride in like, I'm there for my people. If they need me, I'm always
Yes.
looking like, what does she need? How can I be there for her? What's the thing that will help her, push through or
Yes.
move forward or what is it? So I feel like if you develop those like deeply reciprocal relationships where
Mm.
nobody lies, you tell the truth and you show
Yeah.
up for each other, it's a lot easier to ask when you do need the help.
Yeah.
That
Wow.
like in my case that village idea where when my daughter was
Mhm.
really at her worst and was living on the streets and was struggling with addiction and it was like a terrifying time in my life,
Mm.
there were several other families that said we can help.
Mm.
And in fact, she moved in with some very, very close family friends. Living at
Mm.
home wasn't an option at that time because I needed to protect my other child. And it was just sort of the way that it was playing out. We needed
Yeah.
some space. I've got those kind of friends. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, your kid can live with us for a year, no
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
Mm.
That
Wow.
only happens when you tell the truth again
Mm.
and again, and invite people into the reality of
Yeah.
what you're going through, you
Yeah.
know?
I appreciate the it takes a village. I had this thought the other day about, we all know it takes a village to raise a child, and you gave such a beautiful example of like a very real version of that.
Yes.
And because you took the time to build community and tell the truth and be authentic, you had created a village for your child when they needed and when you needed that village.
Mm-hmm.
I had this thought the other day. I think it takes a village to raise a Lindy because
Fair.
I had to start, and I'll share this for, I don't, maybe no one needs to hear this, but I've recently been facing like this journey of like being newly single earlier in the year, and but newly single in my 40s, right? And that's a very different experience than newly single in my 20s or 30s. Because in my
Mhm.
20s, it's like, oh, like so much life ahead of me. And then in my 30s, it's like, oh, well, I'm a little more wise, but I still have so much life ahead of me, right? And then in your 40s, you're like, oh, death is coming. Hmm.
Okay, I'm scared because I'm 55. What? What? What?
You're just a little more like in a healthy way aware of mortality
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and
yeah.
and this idea that like I need a village
Yeah,
to access, the things that we all think we're going to get from one partner and never quite do, right? Like that's also, I think,
right.
a little bit of a myth. So I very intentionally started to create a village earlier this year and start to think about my friendships as like these are investments in
Mm,
my instead of thinking like I'm going to invest all my time in one person, it was more like I need to invest myself and my authentic self in a bunch of different people. And to your point, Tricia, I tend to hang out with a lot of very independent people. We all are terrible at asking for help. And so I finally had to say to a friend the other day, I need to help you even if you don't like it, because there's going to be a day when I'm going to need you to help me. And
I
if I
love
don't
that.
help you now, I'm going to feel weird asking about it. And then we were both like,
Mm.
all right, this
Yep,
is
yep.
how this works. So I'm curious to know like this village that you were building for yourself, really, and for your family, like what was that like to find your village?
So it was intentional for
Hmm.
sure. I would say that my strongest sort of core cohort of women are people who our kids attended elementary school together. And actually there's some in that group preschool. Our kids attended preschool together. And we in one I'm Jewish and in one friendship group it's a chavurah, which is a Jewish friendship circle where we would do holidays together and we would travel together and we literally because I don't live near my family, they're in Southern California and I'm in Northern California, like I really wanted that cousin-like experience for my kids. I wanted them to look around and have lots of aunties and uncles, lots of second moms is what we call a lot of my kids, my closest friends to my kids. I wanted them to have that, and so we built it. That does not happen by accident. That happens through like really clear choice making, making sure you get together and gather with people in small ways, whether it's Friday night dinners or, bigger ways like, hey, let's go camping together, let's go to family camp, what have you. And
Mhm.
we were all joined at the elementary school. It was a Montessori school, so it was already like alternative thinkers, groovy folks that wanted something different, that wanted their
Mm,
kids to grow up exposed to, multiculturalism and a range of ideas. So like it
mm,
was baked into it that
mm,
the folks were interested in thinking about the world and perceiving the world in similar ways to us.
mm,
So we chose a certain school, right? And it was a
mhm.
public school, but we got our kids into this public school that had this pedagogical approach that we knew we vibed with, and that would mean certain things for the way we were raising our kids together.
Yeah.
So just like every stage that we were at, oh, let's choose roller derby because it's like the most alternative, cool,
Hmm.
progressive, body positive, feminist, queer space that we can possibly find.
Love it.
We're going to raise our babies in it
Yes.
because only good things will come from that. And that has proven
Yes.
true 1,000 times over, right?
Yes.
So every
Yes.
time I had to make a choice about like where am I going to invest my energy, my little boy ended up loving musical theater. Amazing. This is going to be
Yeah.
such a positive space for him.
Yes.
So he didn't want to do team sports, but theater's a team sport. So he got to learn all the stuff that I really wanted him to learn if he'd played sports, right? So I just kept choosing it again and again
Mm,
and again. And then I would give myself to it fully. I would volunteer, I would participate, I was active in it. I tried to role model for my kids. This is for me too.
yeah.
I also skated roller derby, right? That wasn't just for my daughter. So that's that's it over time, just staying connected to those folks
Mm,
and creating space to come together. And that can be very small things like taking a walk.
yeah.
And it can be really, really, really big things like my kid is really sick and needs a place to live. Can
Mm,
she live with you for the year?
mm, mm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, showing up for other folks so they're willing to show up for you. And you can do that in 1,000 different ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
And role modeling so intentionally. That is so incredibly powerful.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
keeps me going, right? Because it's
Hmm.
like
Yes.
I'm not just being a martyr here. Like I also
Hmm.
love this thing and you get to see me do the thing. My
Hmm.
kids get to see me be an artist. They get to see me, speak. They get to see me be in the world and be in my power.
Mm.
And I think that that's a really good lesson for them to see that, oh, she's an actual human being apart from us. Weird. Fascinating.
Moms are people too.
Right?
Yes, yes, and that's to the earlier point. I do think there is this messaging that moms have to sacrifice their being and identity for at least 18 years, usually longer. And it
Mm,
is very radical to recognize that, oh no, I'm going to be a full person
Right.
and I'm going to show up as a
mhm.
full person in front of my kids to model being a full person. That's a radical way of being in the world. And I'm so glad that someone encouraged you to do that at one point along the journey because talk to so many mothers, especially, who forget that they're allowed to be a person.
Yeah. I
Or,
mean, my mom, I can say very clearly. Um, my mom was a single mom for a long time, a long chunk of my childhood, and so she worked, of course. She worked at J.C. Penney, and she was really committed and dedicated to her career. She had to work, so she was doing the thing, right?
mm,
And later in my life, when I became a mom, explicitly, she said to me, "A happy mama means a happy family."
mm,
And you
Mm.
need to figure out what that means for you,
mm,
right?
mm,
My journey was different than my mom's. I was the first girl in our family to go to college. I have this kind of creative artistic career that doesn't look anything like what she did with her professional life. But she saw that if I did the thing that I felt really good about and I was, growing in my confidence and my place in the world, that was going to positively impact my kids.
mm,
It was going to be
mm.
just like I saw her go to that store and rise up through the ranks and become a store manager and love what she did and
Yeah.
just be in the world every day, right?
Hmm.
And there were sacrifices. It wasn't like, that it sucked to have a working mom sometimes. My brother
Hmm.
learned how to cook dinner when he was 8 and I was 5. Like there are
Yep.
definitely sacrifices and not great stuff that came from
Yep.
her having to do what she needed to do. But ultimately, I saw my mom as a fulfilled whole person.
Mm,
And
mm,
that's what she told me to do. That's what she showed me how to do, right?
mm, mm. That's power. I mean, it's powerful for any of us, whether or not we have kids, like to get permission. What would being a fulfilled whole person look like?
Right?
That's again, that's kind of radical to think that way. And Trisha, I feel like I could talk to you for hours. This has been such a pleasure, and I feel enhanced from talking to you, and a little called out. Not gonna lie, I think I need to think of, what does showing up as a fulfilled whole person look like for me?
Mm.
I need to sit with that for a bit, right?
And
This
letting your friends
radical
help you.
unmasking.
Letting your friends help you when you need help
Yes.
because they will feel good for having, served you in that way. When you allow people to take care of you, it helps them feel whole.
100%.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Even in small ways, because Trisha, to your point, even the smallest thing, and of course, like the people that truly care about you, it's not a big ask.
At
They
all.
they really do want to help,
Mm, mm.
but
Yep.
we have to let them. Yes. Trisha, thank you so much for joining us in the Burnout Break Room today. This conversation has been it feels like a gross understatement to say it's a beacon of light and just so fulfilling and a wonderful reminder too of, not only how we can live authentically, but why that connection means so much for each other and to make those connections intentionally too. So thank you so much for being here today. And when you're not in the burnout break room, where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram at Flocka Films.
Mm,
That's my film work and my community work. I run a women's co-working space and media production studio called PowerHouse,
mm.
and that's on Instagram at powerhouse-sj. My website is Tricia Speaks, so Tricia-Speaks, and that's for the speaking that I do, the workshops that I run. Yeah, those are a couple of places you can find me.
Beautiful. And all that information will be in the show notes as well if you want to go check out Trisha's projects and everything she's got going on. Lyndie, when you're not in the break room, where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me at lindielarrimore.com or at Lyndie Larimore on Instagram. I've posted some singing stuff lately. There's some information on burnout. And yeah, and if you're interested in coaching through a phase of burnout, please reach out. I'd love to talk to you. And Caitlan, when you're not in the break room, where can we find you?
You can find me at CaitlinTruhella.com specifically, and there you can also find my social media handles as well, usually at Creative Caitlin, specifically on Instagram or TikTok. And if anybody's looking for creative coaching or especially author coaching, you can submit an inquiry there or just send me a message. Also, ideation sessions are great for entrepreneurs that are looking to brainstorm new concepts or looking for solutions. You can reach out to me there.
Well, thank you both so much for your time. It has been such a pleasure. I feel renewed.
Thank you so much. This was a really fun conversation.
Fabulous. Thank you again, Trisha. And until next time, bye everyone.
Bye.